Now, if you listen to this, it means I've set the podcast to go on the recorder, which means there's actually bonus material for you. Because exclusive interview I did with Harry Gration years ago. So stay tuned for that. And stuff on the Wheelchair Challenge Cup, because I may as well get more of that out than just one video's worth of stuff. We've got a great guest next week. You have to wait for that. You have to find out.
Have we?
Well, I mean, it's pre-recorded, so... And great, it's a word that does a lot of heavy lifting sometimes, isn't it? So. Oh, I forgot my mouse. So I have to do it manually and stand up and tell people that we're on. Which we are, because randomly we're live. Didn't mean to be.
Live and together.
Yeah, it's nice to be in the same place. We were going to be doing the show live today, just didn't know when. As it turns out, we're doing it now. So... how exciting is that, dear viewer? Are we excited? It's been an exciting week of Rugby League.
I got a dear viewer.
I don't know yet. I'd say it's been an exciting week of Rugby League. I was 74-10. I mean, what can you do? I mean, it's been a while since I've seen one of those kind of results. Not with Wakefield at the side of it, not like West Wales or Cornwall or something, but well, never mind, that was that done. I wasn't Salford. There's not much you can say, is there, about a result like that? It happens. But it's trying to wind me up. Well, where are you? Sometimes we win. So Martin Coy's our viewer.
Excellent.
Thanks for watching, Martin. So we start with the Wheelchair Challenge Cup final. He's watching. He'll love to know what we've made of it and then correct us on anything we've got wrong.
Well, there's the whole international dimension to this weekend. Clearly there have been club games, we can reflect on those, but I just think it's been a breath of fresh air weekend for the sport, getting back to Rugby League in New Zealand, seeing the emotion of players crying at national anthems, seeing the traditional war cries that they do before the games take place, seeing teams pray together afterwards and sing hymns with each other. I just think this is the dimension that is so undervalued by the sport still, and we talk about how important having this ability to play internationals, that it should be our unique calling card. We've only been doing it since 1907 and we still haven't got a calendar established.
We're going to get one though.
Well, we've been going to get one since about 1988.
We're going to get one from those calendar places you see in shopping centres, but in January when it's reduced.
But I just think you can add in the wheelchair, which we'll talk about separately, too. It had an international dimension and it elevated it beyond even a club game. There were so many subplots to what this could be come the end of the year, and it's the World Cup. It was just brilliant. But we've had a whole raft of internationals. Lebanon played to kick off against Malta. Again, 3,000 people turned up for that game on a wet Wednesday night in Sydney. Brilliant. We've had New Zealand Rugby League returning to New Zealand with a sellout at Mount Smart Stadium, which I'm told hasn't had a sellout for Rugby League since 1998. The Tongan fans were magnificent, even though their team didn't win. The Tongan women clearly were always going to be secondary to the New Zealand Ferns, but the cheers that the women got for the 2 tries that they scored were absolutely unbelievable. And again, we're trying to grow women's sport. Fantastic. They're not in the World Cup. You would hope that this is a stepping stone to the next one. Samoa, we all sort of tuned in to go, I wonder what they're going to look like, because the opening game of the World Cup is England and Samoa. They look in good form. I mean, I'd have to say the Cooks defended brilliantly. We're clearly up against it, and you looked at the balance of selection of those teams that, clearly you have a lot of players with NRL experience playing for Samoa, not so much the Cook Islands. Anthony Gelling unattached. But not only were the Cook Islands spirited enough to say you would go and watch them when they're playing in the World Cup, Samoa had a fullback who plays for Penrith that can't get into the Penrith team at the moment. I'm a Super League chief executive or owner, and I'm looking for a value for money signing in the week that Josh Reynolds has been sent packing by Hull, who has been their marquee signing. Not every marquee signing is going to work, but clearly that is one that didn't. You wouldn't have had to pay marquee money for the Samoan fullback who hasn't yet played for Penrith but looked wonderful on that international stage. Then you got PNG playing in arguably the best international kit of them all.
It looks like a proper kit
against Fiji, which is ranks 5 and 6 in the. They looked like rank 5 and 6. It was a really competitive game. The hits in those games that involved PNG are just ridiculous. Was it Nixon Putt, the second rower for PNG? It just went round nearly assassinating people with his tackling. He was that good. Kyle Labbott, the standoff, was hitting people that were 3 times the size of him. And again, you look at that and you think, well, we haven't counted PNG as being a potential to maybe make a quarter-final, a semi-final, to add to this list of Pacific nations that now have a chance of genuinely winning the World Cup. And you look at that and you go, oh, there's still some players to add in there who are playing over here. That was fantastic. All of it, absolutely. Then you had State of Origin, which it doesn't have an international dimension, but was played in Perth, which has an expansion dimension, which had 60,000 people, a sellout at that stadium. I just think it's been a great weekend for the sport, and it goes beyond whether Wakefield won or lost. Which apparently they didn't.
They lost. They didn't do anything else but lost. That's what they did do. And it's good because everyone's loved the international week, so we've got rid of it now. So that's the end of that.
Yeah, I think it's not the getting rid of it; it's what you do with it. I think if we concertinaed our season a bit, that's not a bad thing. If our season then aligns with the NRL, and you're going to genuinely commit to having between 3 to 6 weeks of international rugby league at the end of the season, when the clubs have had their commitments, and some clubs, I think is it Penrith, have released 21 players over the course of this weekend. Melbourne not far short of that. North Queensland, a lot of players. Some of them who clearly aren't first team players, but they've committed themselves to this weekend. If clubs are going to be even more committed because it's at the end of the season, if every nation can have those players that are eligible, if they can fly around the world, if Scottish and Welsh heritage players can come over and play for their national team, if we can arrange tours so that maybe Tonga can go to France for 3 weeks, if we can all do that in a concerted international window at the end of the season, I'm sort of all for that. And let Origin have its 3 weeks, and we need to find something here that is an Origin equivalent that isn't Yorkshire against Lancashire, and then build up to the internationals at the end of the year. I sort of get that. It works.
We do have England, Scotland, Wales and Ireland, which I know one of those is stronger than the others, but at least...
But because, again, of a lack of playing resource, we couldn't even get a Scotland-Ireland men's international arranged in this window. And some of those nations benefit from players coming over and playing for their heritage, which elevates the standard of the game and more interest in it. But you're not going to do that if you want Ewan Aitken to be released by his club, fly over here, play in a game that maybe has world ranking points attached to it, but there's no Celtic Cup on display or whatever, and then fly back and play for his club the following weekend. St George are not going to do that, but they might if it's at the end of the year.
But we all enjoyed it, so it was good, and most of it was on telly. Origin obviously was the women's Origin game on Friday. I think we've all seen the try now from the under-19s Origin game, which is probably the longest try in the history of the league, because it goes from one end of the pitch to the other, behind the goal line. Of course, it depends which pitch you're on. I don't know what the length of the pitch was. It could have been at Castleford or Bradford or something. But it's been a positive week. Another positive week. What's going on?
What's nice about it as well is that we have been able to put some club loyalties aside to watch games where we can just talent spot for the World Cup, which I think is really exciting. Clearly the domestic game has gone on, and there might be things to talk about. How many Leeds players have been banned? But I just think that focus should be on what it means at the end of the year and how important the World Cup could be in 4 sports, 4 variants of the same sport, which has never happened before. And I now want to see these players in our back garden. I'm excited. I want to see that PNG kit running out on grounds round here, and seeing, for real, how hard they hit people. I can't wait. And if Australia don't want to be part of it or play once every 3 years, we've had a weekend this weekend where it hasn't mattered that they haven't played. It's been good without them.
We have more in common with the Papua New Guineans and the Cook Islanders and the Samoans and the Tongans and whatever than the England rugby union team. But that's another debate for another time. I don't know. What a surprise! It's full of racism and stuff. Is the rugby union? They apologise to Luther Burrell though, so it's all right.
Okay.
So it's all right. They don't need to do an investigation like they did at the cricket, so it's okay. Not that we're clean, we know that. Speaking of clean, good to see Wigan's exciting cartoon thing got people annoyed on the internet this week, so that's always good.
I guess again, I haven't seen it live. It's not something that you want to necessarily promote, but I think it is part of your history. It's not saying it was a good or a bad thing, but it cost you a grand final. It's on a mural. It would have been easier to probably whitewash that out, but I get the argument whereby player welfare and we want to be a responsible sport. Should we be promoting that? It's a tiny part of a bigger mural, and in some respects, listening to Matty Pete talk, he wants culture to mean everything, and that includes the things that you're not quite so proud of, that you have to own up to and own. And it depends. I'd say I haven't seen it up close. It depends how it is depicted.
The great Craig Murdoch's on there. I should speak to him and try and get him on, because I've not spoken to Craig for ages since the Radio Yorkshire thing collapsed, so we should get him on. He's on there, which is good. I wonder if they've got Andy Farrell calling out Scoey.
Well, they've got Kevin Sinfield and Rob Burrow on there, which again is fantastic.
Andy Farrell, what a great TV moment that was. Fat shaming Gary Scott, disgraceful. No wonder he's in rugby union now. We on Saturday went to Hull, to the Alam Sports Arena at the University of Hull, which if you try to look for, you won't find it. There's no signs whatsoever. We were there to watch the Wheelchair Challenge Cup final, because we didn't get there early enough for the Shield final, but well done, Gravesend.
We saw the end of it.
10 tries.
But the problem we had when we got there and tried to work out what was happening at the end of it was both teams were playing in the same colours. Yeah. Probably not a great idea.
But well done to the player who's called 10 tries, whose name I can't remember.
Yes, they beat Merseystorm. And again, I think to have those
victory for the South,
2 tiers, giving everybody an opportunity. Fantastic.
There are 2 clubs, much like London, who are not associated with a professional club, which is good, because it means we're widening the gene pool. The final, though, was between Leeds Rhinos of England and the Catalan Dragons of Catalan. We all enjoyed the national anthem so much, it gets mentioned in the paper today. Abide with me.
We didn't have the Catalonian national
anthem. No, we had that bloody song they play after tries, though. Catalan, that one.
Your earworm.
Yeah, it's been stuck in my head for the last few days. I didn't realise, but here's exclusive content for you people. The Wheelchair Challenge Cup, which must only be, 2 years old or something, already broken. And here's another exclusive for you, because we asked all the important questions, you know that. No fear here. This is not Robert Peston programme, no. They've welded the lids on, so you can't take them off and put them on your head. Because I was looking forward to Nathan Collins putting it on his head.
Do it in Nobby style.
But no, you can't do it now.
Drinking champagne out of the cup.
I'm going to send a strongly worded email to Ralph Rimmer saying, sorry out Ralph, get them unwelded. We want to see players with the lid on their head. But what a game it was. Perhaps a preview of what the World Cup final will be come November in Manchester. But physical, intense, skillful. I mean, we were wincing up at the balcony, because when they bash into each other, they've told us it doesn't hurt. It's just bashing it's wheels bashing into each other. It doesn't hurt, but it sounds great on the telly. And Leeds, as is their wont to do, won the Challenge Cup for the 3rd time, and it was great. It was a great afternoon. Great afternoon's entertainment.
I don't think I've ever seen it. We're still getting to know all the nuances.
I think you've seen more than I have. I've seen 2 games now live.
I don't think I've ever seen a game where players were thrown out of a chair as much, which was a testament to the physicality and the robustness of it. There's the genuine rivalry. We had the good fortune of of talking to some of the players before and afterwards, and this is what we need to build up. The fact that there is a real animosity from a playing sense, not from a camaraderie sense afterwards. And Catalan went into that as favourites. Seb Bashara, who was trying to build it up on a podcast during the week, said he wanted to wipe the smile off the Leeds faces. Again, brilliant.
He won me over on that one.
And you talk to the Leeds players, and go, oh yeah, they've got this sort of air about them that they think they just need to turn up and win. But in terms of game management, as good a tactical performance from any team in any format of the game that I've seen in a final. I don't know what the record is for gaining goal line dropouts in any form of rugby league, but Leeds must have set a record by turning Catalan round, and what would there have been, 5, maybe 6 in the second half, which is a testament to the immense accuracy of the kick, the desire and willingness of the chase, and the tactical awareness to stop your opposition from building an attack by continually turning them around, reminiscent of the 2004 men's running grand final when Kevin Sinfield's aim that entire 80 minutes to put the ball over the head of Leslie Vinacolo, turn him round and get Mark Calderwood in his face, tackling him. It was very similar. Some astonishing individual performances. I have to say, Tom Halliwell, I thought genuinely was the player of the match because he just controlled it. He's got the most brilliant passing game. His pass selection options and ability to do it under immense duress and without shoulders is fantastic. But that's the best I've seen James Simpson play. I think came up with a hat-trick in the final, and it was some desire and determination for last-ditch tackling as well, that he was leading the line, that Jodie Boyd-Ward was outstanding. She had a personal mission to target Seb Bashara. I don't know why that would be, but she had an intimation beforehand that she wanted to really get in his face, and there was one particular tackle in the second half where he wasn't injured but his chair was from the collision, bits flying off all over the place, and I think she got a great deal of satisfaction from that. Nathan Collins, we were told as we were walking in by somebody who knows him very well, it might have been his mother, that he shouldn't have been played. He'd been advised by doctors that because of the nature of the fracture of his finger playing for England the week before, it was a risk. Strapped it up, was said, you really shouldn't play. I think you'll find I am. Strapped it up, and how good was he? Again, he just got natural speed. And the French had 3 internationals who hadn't played the week before, and at 16-6 up in the first half, looked as though they were going to take control. It just had everything. I know we extol it and we go on about it, and we think that there is so much value in this variant of rugby league, but if you got, it's on the iPlayer for probably the next 30 days. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it.
You should. What was the final score? 48-34. There you go. It was a Josh,
which
Butler
again is a lower scoring game to some of the ones that we've seen because of the intensity in there. I thought absolutely magnificent, and great to see Tom Coyd, the England coach, there checking out
you
some
think
players.
Mr Simpson might have been trying to prove a point to the coach there.
Well, I reckon
I forgot to ask him afterwards.
He couldn't have played a lot better. But I don't envy Tom Coyd now only picking 10 players for his World Cup squad, because there's some real talent out there at the moment.
Assuming that Wales don't get to the later stages of the competition, if I'm a TV company, and I know Kyle Amell's doing really great stuff, I'll be getting Jodie on. I think she's a great speaker, and I think she'd do a good job during the World Cup on the broadcast side of things. The other thing about the Rhinos' performance that has to be mentioned, I think, apart from swapping, was it Butler for Cribbins? They'd swap
twice.
The other 4 players played the full length of the 80 minutes. Great game, great, really entertaining.
I've never seen a team in wheelchair control the way that game was going to be played as much. Sometimes it can be a bit, if you're in possession, there's a chance you might score, and then you give the ball back to the opposition. There's a chance, there is almost a tit for tat element in some games that we've seen. Or if a team is overly dominant, every time they get possession, they tend to score. This was tactically fantastic to watch, absolutely absorbing, and I hope there were a few people that had some drinks on Saturday night to celebrate their victory.
I compared him to this on Saturday, and I'll do it again now because it's on the air rather than standing there at the side of the pitch. Nathan Collins reminded me of his performance in the game, a cross between Rob Burrow in terms of his speed and his determination and his thought processes, and Kevin Sinfield with his kicking, as you mentioned, 2004, 2014, the final against Cass at Wembley where they just kicked Castleford to death. I mean, we talk about it is rugby league, but they sat down and they've got wheels, and that's the only difference. I mean, it's some minor difference. Obviously, Callum's got a penalty for having too many players on the pitch at one point, which was hilarious. But if we accept that the skills are generally the same and the idea of the sport is the same, then I think you can make the comparison to say that that's what it reminded me of, and it's so good. So good. It's so good to watch.
It was magnificent. It was absolute. I thought it was a better game than the international the week before, and it does augur well for the World Cup because, as I say, the bulk of that Catalan team were the French internationals. They're going to form the bulk of their squad, and a proportion of the Leeds team will be playing for England. Jodie will be playing for Wales, and I just think that we. Watch it. We can only say you should watch it. I think if you did watch it, you would have been nothing but singularly impressed.
If you're listening to the podcast, you'll hear the interviews we did after the match at the end of the podcast. If you're watching, they're already up on YouTube anyway, so you can watch them there. But yeah, and what was also great to see, because I've had a go in the chair and it's amazing. I'd love to have another go. Was the amount of kids there who were just given a chance to just zoom around the pitch on a chair at half time. It's like watching in the old days of the cricket where you could go on the pitch at the tea interval and have a few shots, but it was good to see so many kids there enjoying themselves, and it's good. It's good.
I think the other thing is that all of these people that you will have interviewed, do seek out them if you haven't already. They've all got fabulous stories to tell, and they're not so much stories about how they got to be in wheelchair rugby league. I think we've heard quite a lot of those. It's just they talk fantastically about the sport, about the nuances of the sport, the tactics of the sport, what it means to them. I just, with the greatest respect to perhaps some kids that have come through the scholarship and academy system and have only ever known rugby league, when you interview them, they haven't really got anything to say. Whereas every single person we spoke to after the game, particularly, the interviews they give are fantastic.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm not interested in why people are in a wheelchair playing rugby league or whatever, because that's not how I intend it to mean. But I always go in with the intention of I'm asking about this because it's a sport. I'm not interested in the backstory after a match because we're interested in the 80 minutes we've just seen. And I think that's how you should treat all sport, including Leeds Rhinos winning the Women Wheelchair Challenge Cup, and they beat St Helens in the Women's Super League, Phil. I mean, here you go. You can't write off the Rhinos.
Well, you can at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, they're rubbish. But 14-0 down, the women, and here they come. And they win. Fran Goldthorpe, what a try. Connie Winfield Hills, vision and awareness. And there they are. Leeds back. Leeds are back.
I think, quite honestly, the wheelchair game was one of the best I've seen. That was one of the best women's games I've seen. I think the York and St Helens game was absolutely fantastic the other week when York won. This was on a par with it. I just thought the tenacity from Leeds at 14-0 down, which, had it been 24-0 down, you wouldn't have begrudged. St Helens were that dominant in the early stages, but some of the last-ditch defence from Leeds to keep them in the game, and then the ability to get their speed merchant, who was playing at fullback, twice on the outside, once on the outside of the opposition, then once through the middle and spinning and in for it was as good a game as you could wish to see, with the most dramatic ending and the highest quality for 80 minutes in terms of commitment. Sure, somebody will say, oh no, there was too much drop ball, or Saints maybe couldn't get back to the level they were at the beginning of the game. But if you wanted an absorbing contest that you could not take your eyes off, that's as good a women's game as I've seen. And again, unfulfilled potential. It could go anywhere if we get it right.
It's on the telly and everything. I don't like to use the word brave in a sporting context. I'm buying into the Richie Beno school of reporting on things. You know, these aren't disasters and so on and so forth. But I'll tell you what is brave. The Leeds Rhinos women who went to watch their teammate Ella Johnson play for Fev on loan on Sunday in full Rhinos gear. Now, I think Amy Staveley and somebody else didn't. They're the smart ones, but the other ones, Caitlin Beavers, etc., I don't know. Featherstone beat Lee 34-4. This is the Women's Super League, of course, not the Championship. Warrington beat Bradford. It's not the paper, but they won 50-odd nil,
54-0.
54-0, there you go. Borough beat Cass 46-10. Big game on Sunday at the Bellevue. Wakefield Cass, they almost go at the bottom of the Women's Super League Group 2. Don't ask what happens at the bottom of the table.
Is that the curtain raiser?
It's the curtain. Well, it says here it kicks off at 12, so it must be the curtain raiser.
Right.
We're going to knock
so
down
it's not the
stand
final
afterwards.
game before the stand gets knocked down.
No, it will be the men afterwards. Or we might go down and knock it down now after Sunday. And in the Super League 1, it was Wigan 0, York City Knights 46. Hat-trick from Emma Kershaw, former guest on this programme. And York remain top with 4 wins from 4 games.
And Saints at the moment, clearly there is going to be semi-finals and they will have a say in it, but if it was the top 2 going through to the final this week, Saints wouldn't be there and you wouldn't have got money on that 3 weeks ago, would you? 4 weeks ago.
Saints in
When was the last time they lost? Saints women lost
two in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Probably before they were good. Yeah.
They were good.
Before they were good. Excitement in the comments. Hello, Carsten, who's listening. Andy, a Warrington fan. When you won't watch the Super League show until your team wins to find there's no highlights, just 2 penalties. Could Sam Thomas play for France now on residential rights if he wished? Asking for a friend, asked Andy. Has he been in France long enough?
I think he has.
Are they tier 1 or tier 2 France? They're tier 2, aren't they?
Yeah.
So he could switch. You can't go from 1 to 1, but you can go.
I don't think he will.
No. They've got full back anyway, haven't they? Andy says, how did James Bentley get away with being banned again? Without being banned again? Has he not been banned?
No, it's only 3 others.
No.
Well,
it was dissent at least, and with his poor discipline record this season, is that not taken into account?
No, I think it's sin binning sufficient because it was petulant and didn't affect the result of the game. I think again, Leeds men have a discipline issue that Leeds wheelchair and Leeds women clearly don't. I'd be tempted to get the coaches of those teams in to have a word and say, look, this is how you maintain your dignity and discipline over the full 80 minutes, even under some kind of provocation. I think a lot of it does come down to frustration because clearly they're not playing very well.
If Harry, I was going to say Harry Sunderland, not him. If Harry Newman had been sin binned on Thursday, then would he have escaped a ban perhaps? Because you don't need.
No, I think there's a difference between petulance, knocking the ball out of somebody's hands, and stopping a restart when the game's already gone, to verbally abusing a referee. And Harry will learn a lesson from that because again he's fought so hard to get back into the team with his injury issues to now miss 2 games because he verbally abused the referee. That's again the impetuousness of youth that needs curbing. As for Zane Tetivano, I don't know which Greek island he'll be booking a holiday to.
Did you see Joe Burch's try that was given but was well out of play? And I'm a Salford fan, says John. No. Do you think I watched the highlight? I mean, I may have said, you'll watch an interview later where I'm speaking to Callum Watkins and said, oh, you worked hard for those tries. That's because Gary Carter said so. And I trust him. I'm not watching the bloody highlights. Come on now.
I saw a photograph on social media.
I mean, look, it could have been...
there'll be a week where a call will go against Salford. Clearly, the tries that I've seen, and I like you, I only watched the highlights. I wasn't at the game. Salford deserve a huge amount of credit for the creativity that they showed. And sometimes you see a scoreline and you go, "Oh, Wakefield's defence." I mean, a lot of it was beautifully created, and there'll be talk of who's been the best overseas signing on the basis, obviously, that Reynolds hasn't quite worked out at Hull. Brody Croft has gone under the radar a little bit, and it's been every time I've seen him, it's been sensational.
Reynolds hasn't quite worked out at Hull there.
Today's understatement of the year hasn't quite worked out.
I mean, at least Wakefield scored 10 points, which is more than Hull did, and they scored tries, which is more than Warrington did. I mean, we need to talk about this because today we had this media event up the road at Beckett, talking about stats and stuff. You'll see some stuff on the YouTube this week, and it'll be some of it will be next week as well, including our guest next week, who I've recorded. But he's probably embargoed, so you'll have to wait till next week. Not that exciting. And George Williams was supposed to be there from Warrington, but he couldn't be there. He needed a scan or something. And the first question I was going to ask him was, in my style, what was it like playing in that game? Because we are all sat at home watching and it's rubbish, and we're all saying it's rubbish. And for the people who believed me when I said we should kick out Warrington and Hull and put Lee and Featherstone in instead in Super League, people actually believed I was like being serious. Why would you get rid of Hull? There's a big city, and put it in a pit village. These people. I don't know what to say apart from them being idiots. However,
they've had a humour bypass.
Yeah.
That was a tough watch. I mean, I can't imagine what it was like for the fans of those teams. As a neutral, that was, let's go and have another cup of tea and put the kettle on, because it was, I think the word I may have used was turgid. I think that's being kind. And what I don't understand, I mean, I do understand, clearly it's the fear of losing is more important than trying to find a way to win. And those two teams are both in that moment. And there isn't a mitigating circumstance, but Hull have lost Jake Connor. Luke Gale went off with an HIA, didn't come back. Josh Reynolds arguably may not have turned out to be the best signing they've ever made. They're going to struggle to score points when their three most creative players aren't on the field. And I'm including Reynolds in that, even though clearly hasn't been one of their most creative players. But that's what he was there to do. But there was enough talent on that pitch on both sides to serve up something a lot better than we did. I mean, Sky tried to justify it by saying, for confidence, this will do Warrington a lot of good, and they've nilled an opponent and they're goal lined. Yeah, I get all of that. There wasn't one piece of attacking play in the entire 80 minutes. It was terrible.
The old cliche is Richard Keys, of course, who you'll all remember, the star of Sky Sports in the glory days of the Premier League, when it was good. He would come on at the half-time in the Monday Night Football, half-time between Coventry and Southampton, say, what a first half that was, can't wait for the second and stuff, and, then bugger off to Qatar. But sometimes, Brian Carney does usually admit when a game is rubbish. He's very smart about this.
That was such a tough watch.
So Warrington won, which is the main thing. And
it's the main thing for Warrington.
Yeah.
For the rest of us.
Yeah. Test card.
I'm not sure
Love Island.
It's told us anything. I just get the impression as well that those two teams are looking at next year rather than what they still may achieve this year. Their squad changes every week in terms of who they are signing for next year. We got that interesting swap deal.
Well, yeah, we were asked, what do you think about it? Says Kevin.
I think that clearly Warrington are going for rewarding their young players that are coming through at the moment, and they all seem to be backs.
Yeah, as Andy says, Wrench and Fewless are playing better than King and Charlie, who's of course gone to Lee as well.
So I think that's part of we're changing the guard at Warrington, and Toby King has been a victim of that. He's gone back to the club where Warrington bought him from as an academy player. So I can see why he would go back to Huddersfield. I can also see why clearly there's some doubt at the moment about whether Ricky Lutelli is going to sign for next year. You would hope that he would, because he's been one of the best players in the competition, never mind for the Giants this year. And I think King in the future can be a back rower as well. I think he's got the physique to do that. So that's a fit. Jake Wardle, I am surprised, because you make your England debut one week and the next week you're not playing for your club team. But we noted at the time when we went to Spurs, it seemed odd that he hadn't been selected for the cup final. And again, the issue is Leroy Cudjoe going to get given another year? If he does, when everybody's fit, Wardle, for some reason, for Ian Watson, isn't a first choice player. So I think it works for everybody. But it did get, the first transfer we've had in ages where there was no leak beforehand. No, well done, everybody.
I'm hoping John's wrong that Luke Gale's coming to Wakefield, because we've got enough old people now. Well, I like Luke Gale, but we've got Tom Lynham, we've got all these other people.
Well, you are going to have to find somebody for replacing Jacob Miller.
Yeah, well, no, he might stay. You never know. You never know what's going to happen. He might not go to Castleford, even though everyone is assuming he is. This time of year when everyone knows what's happening.
That's the same people who are assuming that Jake Truman might be going to Hull. He's going to.
My theory on Hull get away with it because Warrington and Leeds are rubbish doesn't bear water because they are in the top 6. They've won as many games as they've lost, but I still think they're underperforming.
They are. They seem to me to be a one-dimensional team, and I don't think again that Brett Hodgson has decided the best position for some of his players. I don't know where Joe Loverdoer's best position is, but I'm not sure it's in the halves. It might well be second row. I quite liked him when he came over as a hooker. I'm told that he may not want to play hooker as his first choice, but again, it's
tough. You do what the coach tells him.
You need to play the players in the position that best suits the way you want to play, rather than put them on the field and have 2 or 3 people not really sure of what their role is in the team, which to me both teams look like that on Friday, in that instantly forgettable 80 minutes that none of us will ever get back.
Wigan with their Muriel in tribute to Hilda Ogden, they beat Tilly's 40 points to 6. Thanks, Wigan.
I think there's something. Wigan are now throwing off the shackles a little bit. So we know that Field and French are going to cause problems. Field apparently was quiet for a lot of that game, and then scored the most, again, ridiculous try. They're now getting other people on the score sheet. They're now getting a whole team contribution, and they're playing some exciting and attractive rugby. The problem for Toulouse, I think, is again they've lost Gadwin Springer, who's apparently left the club in some form of a dispute. I don't know if that's because he feels he should be playing more minutes, but you need togetherness if they're going to get out of this at the bottom of the division. They're going to need to jag 3 or 4 more wins, probably most of those at home. They're in arguably the most important month in July because they play, I think, all the teams around them. I think they've got Wakefield, Leeds, Salford amongst the games that they play. They are now must-win games. What you don't want is, we've lost Corella, we've lost Ford, we've lost Springer, Mitch Garbutt's leaving, which he may have done anyway, to go and become player coach at Saint Esteve. It's almost like there's a feeling behind the scenes that they're planning for next year already. It's a shame. Corey Norman doesn't know if he's staying on at the end of this year, and again, whatever the rights and wrongs of who's in Super League and whether you should have promotion, relegation, what doors it opens to have a second French team, and whether we've capitalised on that or not enough, and is that because they may not be there next year? All of those questions are secondary to the fact that they need to start putting some performances together.
We're trying to think of some kind of Wakefield. They've got red faces, but not quite as red as the ballot box on Thursday, but they couldn't work it out how to do that one. So Kai Pearce-Paul of Wigan, he's off to Newcastle Knights, as is young Price at Huddersfield Giants.
With again, everybody saying that he'll be at Huddersfield next year and then at Newcastle 2024. Should Newcastle want him earlier, which will be dependent on, again, how they finish the season and which players they want to retain. And I think there's talk that Jake Clifford might be leaving Newcastle to come to Hull, funnily enough, to replace Josh Reynolds. If Newcastle decide Will Price would fit in at standoff next year, they'll pay a transfer fee. Unfortunately, contracts that people have signed and commitments that they've made, they can now be paid off. And whilst I would love to see him learn for another year at Huddersfield, and again, when he plays and spots those gaps and gets these hands on the ball like he did against Hull KR a couple of times, he is a joy to watch.
He was hat-trick for Leroy Cudjoe, 200th try for Jermaine McGillivray. Love the Luke Yates try just after half time from the rubbish kick-off. Hull KR back in crisis again now. Obviously, they're out of the top 6 as we speak. But very good performance from Huddersfield more than anything else. I
think what Huddersfield are doing are continually defying those people that say, I don't know if they are a top 4. They are a top 4 team. They have got a way of playing, a belief amongst what they do. Kept it quite conservative in the first half when they were facing a really strong wind, but opened out and played some lovely rugby in the second half. It's not all structure. There's a fair amount of structure, but they play on the back of that structure. They are the real deal. They quite easily could get to Old Trafford. I think that the issue at Hull KR at the moment, bearing in mind that their chief executive did a major podcast last week, is there seems to be this huge chasm between what he's talking about in terms of what Willie Peters is going to do next year and why he's a great acquisition for the club, and the fact that he actually does have a coach at the moment who clearly the two don't get on. I've got nothing but the highest admiration for Tony Smith and everything he's done wherever he's been. He's a pleasure to talk to. He's educated so many people, and I used to love having just chats with him away from asking him questions directly related to a game, because you learn so much from people like that. I just don't know whether he's going to see out the season. Well, that's
the ongoing question, isn't it? They're not going.
And while
down,
that's unresolved, it's not reflected in the fact that players go off injured. There's nothing you can do about that. It's just that you've got the chief executive already again talking about next year, and the coach trying to remedy this year. Who's signing the players, what they're going to look like. You know, the coach for next year inadvertently gave away the 3 overseas players that Hull KR are signing next year. Again, to me, it's all a bit out of balance at Rovers at the moment.
Andy suggested biannual promotion and relegation. The points of the second season only apply to who goes up or down. Oh, that's too confusing. So you get people moaning whatever system we do, which won't work anyway. And after golden point extra time, Catalan Dragons lost to Cassava Tigers, who are now 2 points clear of Hull Kingston Rovers. Catalans go below Huddersfield because Huddersfield won. Danny Richard is now great again, so that's.
I think that also with I mean, the thing for Castleford is clearly they showed that some of the resolve and determination and discipline that Lee Radford's been asking for. That they've had an element of inconsistency about them, but that is a really, really big response, and they could be a team that you know ends in the playoffs. I think there would be, you know, that kind of result tells you that they would be worthy of that. I just wonder, and it's not in any, you know, please Castleford fans, not detracting in any way from your great achievement. The week before in the internationals, Catalan had provided most of the French team and some of the English team as well. You do wonder if, you know, Cass made best use of and benefited from the week off, and you know, Steve McNamara is trying to manage the players that he got back and the physical condition they were in, and then they're back on a plane and going to Cass. Not to detract in any way, but I think Saints Catalan in Perpignan this weekend, that is that's a marker game for the Dragons.
Cass have got a lot of home games coming up this month, so it's probably good that they get as many wins as possible and keep their fans happy and coming through the turnstiles at the Jungle, where they face Huddersfield on Friday on the telly.
Which will be a good game, the way that will be a good test for Castleford, because I think we know exactly what we're going to get from Huddersfield, and that is total commitment.
So 0-0 at the end. Hull versus Leeds. That'll be rubbish, Hull Leeds.
Yeah, good job that isn't on any television, to be honest.
If it's on Radio Humberside or Radio Leeds, just don't listen to something else. In fact, listen to me, because I'm on the radio at the same time. I forgot that. Toulouse versus Hull Kingston Rovers at 8. And on Sunday...
That's a big game for Toulouse, by the way, because...
Oh, yeah, they could win that. Oh, no, it's not good, is it?
Well, Rovers went over there, 15 minutes ago, because of the stupid loop fixtures that they have. So they're going back, and... I think Toulouse would have earmarked that first game as one that they needed to win. Now it's a cup final for them. That is almost a grand final dress rehearsal if they're going to avoid relegation.
Sunday's Wakefield Wigan knocking the stand down after. I don't think they're doing it straight afterwards. I need to...
Are there JCBs in the car park?
I don't know. They went there the other day when I was there filming stuff for the Ace documentary. Right, it should be out when I've edited it. I've not done it yet.
Any? Did you pick up any memorabilia?
No, well, not yet, but I want to get my seat from the press box. But I'm sure I can get that.
Have you got a designated seat?
No, I haven't, because I'm not Radio Leeds, and I'll put a sticker on the chair like they've done. Very possessive, the BBC.
Are you going to take that wooden door into that?
There's a lot of chairs in there as well. I did a bit of filming in there. It's nice, isn't it? Get a window.
You take the ISDN line.
Yeah, I could do. I mean, someone will probably use that. I don't know who. Warrington Salford also on Sunday.
Which again is going to be a real test for Warrington, because Salford will come with confidence, and we shouldn't forget that they could only name, was it 19 players instead of 21? So they've had a real injury crisis. Morgan Escaray now is out for the season. But you come off the back of having scored, 13 tries against a team that didn't score one. Again, could be a long afternoon for Warrington if they don't throw the shackles off a little bit.
I think stick all those young Welsh lads they've got in their academy on the bench. That's what they need to do. Why do so many teams in the Championship not give out attendances? What have they got to hide?
I don't know. I think it should be mandatory. Find them.
The arms race is back on. Featherstone paraded their latest nuclear submarine down the main road in Featherstone, which is the only road in Featherstone, in Broadbent. And then Leigh got their intercontinental ballistic missile out and drove that through Leigh Town Centre. And that was Josh Charlie.
Because they need a winger, having signed Blake Ferguson.
Colin says run of home games. I'm sure when I was, because I asked today, what should I ask about Castlewood, and I said we've got some home games coming up. Maybe it's July then, not June.
Well, it's July this week.
Buy some tickets. In the Championship, Bradford beat Dewsbury in front of a crowd of we don't know 48-6.
Was that the Mark Sawyer derby?
The Mark Sawyer derby, yeah. The home of dust. The home of dust apparently at Odsall these days. Saw some people having to wipe down their chairs because of the stock car racing. Featherstone lost to Batley, and the second best thing that's come out of Batley, apart from these chocolate orange crunch creams, they're very nice. Official biscuit of the podcast.
Thanks, Foxes.
Well done to Craig Lingard's men, 28-20.
A columnist. There we say.
So if you're a columnist in the magazine, it goes well. If you come on the programme, forget about it. But
I think again, completely underestimated. I saw today that a couple of people have done interviews with him because that's an outstanding result. That they drew with Featherstone in the first game that they played up at Mount, but to go to Featherstone and win again is just a victory for belief, commitment to one another, and a really astute coach. Who is happy in the environment he's in and keeps being linked with jobs such as the one at Bradford, and you're thinking, no, why would he? Why does he need to? He can work his oracle at Batley. He's involved in the heritage side there. I've seen him on match day do 150 jobs, and as he joked, they'd have me doing the car park as well if they could. But he's really got some. You look at the respective teams on paper, Batley should not have won that game. What was the X factor? Craig Lingard.
The league table doesn't lie. Now the interesting thing now,
I'll tell you what, Batley get in the playoffs.
Yeah,
they're the team you don't want to meet.
Nothing to lose, have they? McDermott out will say some Featherstone fans, which is what Leeds fans used to say, before winning grand final after grand final after grand final. I mean, I know that some of them weren't happy when he was appointed in the first place, but knowing that Featherstone probably have to win one or two games to get what they want, is there any better coach in the last 15 years or whatever to win one game than Brian McDermott?
He'll be learning more through his team not performing than he would if they were winning by 50 points every week. And he'll be tinkering, and he'll be looking at who he wants in certain positions, and he'll be deciding when it comes to those games who he wants to play and what he wants from them. I wouldn't write Featherstone off just yet. I think they've got the perfect man in charge, and he will be absolutely delighted that somebody else are the favourites.
After the introduction of Toronto into League One in whatever it was, they increased the salary cap at every level to the same amount, didn't they? So Gary the Vikings asked, how can League stay under the salary cap? And they said the same with Featherstone as well, because they all signed.
It's the same as the Super League salary.
Yeah, so they've got a lot of money to play with, ridiculously, because they ruined that because they wanted Toronto. I don't know. What did they want?
Do you think Josh Reynolds will sign for League?
He might do. He might go a Fev. The other interesting thing about Featherstone is a lot of fans not happy that they let Dane Chisholm go. Now, two things. One, he's gone to a team in League One, so he wasn't. No other team in the Championship seemed to want to pick him up. And there's no disrespect to Keighley, of course, because they're top of the table. And no disrespect to Dane Chisholm. But it's not as if, and Craig Hall's been dropped this week, it's not as if when he was at Leeds, Brian McDermott didn't say drop, I know, Kevin Sinfield.
Rob Burrow
does,
on the bench.
yeah.
It seems to work though, and when Jonathan,
it's not a Brian McDermott apologist podcast, but
when Jonathan Ford is available and you can pick him up, then somebody has to be released. Tom Holmes has gone as well, hasn't he? So he is doing what he needs, what he believes he needs to do to win those 2 games at the end. Whether he does or not is how he'll be judged.
And if they don't win, they'll get somebody else in and buy all the same players again as they do every year, and rinse and repeat until they go up and then come back down, because that's what happens. Also in the Championship, Newcastle Thunder beat Warrington 66-22. Have you seen Hanley's try? Nice chip over the top, very good.
And who's going to be the next Newcastle coach?
Dennis Betts.
Well, I think he's only holding the reins, but...
do you know? Because you've asked that question, do you know?
No. But I think it's interesting because there is a team that has potential, has an investor.
Well, it's not John Keir because he's at Widnes.
We've got a couple of big events coming up in the city. There's a Friday Night Lights game for Newcastle or equivalent, which is going to be on Premier Sport. I think that's a job that an ambitious coach would want to take. But I don't know
who that is.
Who is in the frame?
Well, that shows you how things have changed, doesn't it? When Newcastle played Bradford, however many years ago on a Friday night, it was us doing it on bloody proper sport.
Going to the chicken shack.
Yeah, I think there was a Bradford player got sent off in the under-19s academy game in that one. I can't remember who it was. I was going to say a player, and I didn't want to say it just in case I got it wrong. But that was quite funny. Sheffield lost to Lee 58-4. See, Sheffield can put their crowd figures out there. It's only them, and Newcastle have done so. Whitehaven 16, York 40, and Widnes
York have sneaked
they're
into contention.
Third now, aren't they?
Yeah, and the gap's narrowing.
Yeah. Fev and York, they've got no connections, have they?
I don't think so, no.
Celebrating 150 years of rugby in York, apart from, York City Knights have been around for about 7 years. And someone will say, no, they've been around longer. No, this current if we're pretending Bradford Bulls aren't the same as Bradford Bulls, then York aren't the same as they were before. And Widnes beat London, having been 22-10 down at half-time. They won 26-22. Great result for Widnes and John Keir. Very disappointing for London, obviously, but they remain a point above the relegation zone.
Big week for London this week because they're taking a game to Gillingham, to Ebbsfleet. Sorry, not Gillingham, to Kent, to Ebbsfleet.
They could take it to the home of Kent Invicta. Is that still standing? What did they play at Maidstone?
So yeah, for the Ebbsfleet football ground is it Sheffield that they play on Sunday?
Yes. He doesn't say it's at Ebbsfleet though in the paper, so I didn't realise.
It is, I believe.
Batley Whitehaven, Bradford Lee, Dewsbury, Halifax, London Sheffield, Warrington Widnes, York Barrow. On Saturday it's Fev versus Newcastle, and tonight of course, which if you listen to the podcast you already know the results, it'll have finished. Barrow versus Halifax.
Which will be a great game, I think.
In League One, Hunslet lost 24-32 in the Alan Kilshaw derby to Rochdale Hornets, which was a bit of a disappointment for Alan Kilshaw because he now coaches Hunslet. Keighley nilled Oldham 62-0. That's
They're
why
running away with it, aren't they?
That's why Dane Chisholm should be at Featherstone, because Keighley won. Well, they're 4 points clear of Swinton, who won at London Scholars 48-22. Again, the Scholars announced their attendance, so if they can do it. North Wales lost to Doncaster.
The wheels have fallen off a little bit, because the Crusaders were unbeaten for, was it 6 games?
26-18 to Doncaster. That
big result for Doncaster.
Had that one sewn up at half-time, you say. And congratulations, Cornwall. You have won a match. You have beaten the West Wales Raiders 24-4. That was in our league, but I didn't watch it because it was at the Wheelchair Challenge Cup final.
Revenge for losing, was it 20-0 at home to West Wales?
So, swapped wins.
But they both got wins. It's a historic day. Liam Whitton is a good player. I think did he get 2 tries for Cornwall?
Yes.
Good player.
This week it is Cornwall versus Hunslet on Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock.
Oh, a nice summer's trip for Hunslet.
Yeah, be alright. Flying in and out, you can't do it. Especially not that we're carbon neutral. See how many paper cups you'll have to do for that trip. League One, Keighley versus West Wales. Oh dear. Midlands versus Rochdale, North Wales London Scholars, and Swinton versus Doncaster, which is
that's a good
interesting game. Yeah,
that's a good game.
That's League One this week. Is there anything else we need to talk about? Oh, Harry Gration we haven't mentioned. Who?
Well, I was going to end this whenever we end it by saying enjoy your rugby
anything
league.
else we need to talk about before that? Is there anything else going on that I've forgotten about?
Well, we've had the disciplinary. Half of Leeds are banned.
Yeah. See what it says on the front of the paper. Toulouse Star walks out from that. Wolf calls for international calendar. Yeah, we want that. RFL in the money. Oh, they've made a profit, haven't they? The RFL.
Which might be something to do with them. Oh, there's a big social impact report being announced on Thursday by the World Cup about Rugby League social impact. Look out for that. The report is really worth it. Just not necessarily look out for the person who might be presenting it. Can we say that?
No, I don't know.
You edit that out.
I think it's a Conway Martin Sutherland's tweet of the week, by the way, in the League Express. It's almost like whoever's writing that column is like sucking up to him. I don't know who does that, so I'm just saying nonsense. I don't think there's anything else in the paper. Scully's written Leeds continue to struggle. But
that's not news either, though, is it?
No.
And he doesn't like marquee signings when they like Josh Reynolds.
For the rubbish, yeah. No, well, let's talk about Harry Gration then, because he's no longer with us. If you're listening to the podcast again, you get a bonus of me talking to him in 2009. Listen to how different I sound. It's weird. Before I started hating people and stuff. Although there is some... I remember, even though it's so long ago since I did this interview, I remember the only thing I edited out, because it was while I was at Ridings FM in Wakefield, which doesn't exist either now. He mentions Radio Leeds on it, so I edited that bit out. Because can't mention the competition. When Chris Moyles sponsored the Featherstone Stadium, we never mentioned Chris Moyles. But Harry Gration's died, which is very sad. A fixture of local broadcasting in Yorkshire for donkey's years.
Started on Radio Leeds. Was a pioneer of some of their rugby league coverage.
Look north, of course.
Do you know who produced his 5:30 to 6 o'clock rugby league roundup show when that's all we had?
Go on.
Martin Kelm.
Martin Kelm, never heard of him.
Another columnist done all right for himself.
Well, I mean, hopefully it's a long time until we're saying the same thing about Mr. Kellner, but it's very sad because obviously no one's had a bad word to say about him. Super League show, enjoy your rugby league and all that. Him and Scully on the sofas in the olden days. A titan of local broadcasting, the kind of which you don't get anymore. It was the weirdly, in Alanis Morissette not turning up for a gig because she was ill, ironic sense, the anniversary of Richard Whiteley's death this weekend as well. So two titans of local TV broadcasting, both with very different styles and very different ways of presenting things, which you don't get anymore. You don't get that same kind of, and it's not a knock on the people who do those programs now. Just you don't get that same longevity, and
which means you don't get that same association with the audience, that you're going in every night into their house and you become part of the family. I think his love of sport was indicated by whenever there was an Olympics on, Harry was always sent out to do judo, what you might call some of the lesser sports, but did them with such professionalism that I actually found myself watching Taekwondo because Harry's commentated on it. He was a lover of. He loved his cricket. He really did. But he absolutely was passionate about rugby league, and wherever he could, sold the idea to the extent that when Maurice Lindsay asked him to join to look after the PR side, although it didn't work out because they were such diametrically opposed personalities. Morris obviously in your face, have you done, what we doing about? Harry a bit more laid back. It's safe to say that the styles were never going to work, and I think Harry became a tiny bit disillusioned with the sport. Went and worked for, was it TV South or something?
He went to BBC in the South, yeah.
After that, but the fact that he even wanted a position within rugby league because he could see that he could do so. The video that we've all got and watched thousands of times, was it?
Of Bobby Fault? Dear me, he dealt with it well.
He was perfectly professional. I happened to be there as one of the media people waiting to interview Bobby Fulton when Harry got to ask the first questions, and Bobby just set on him. What do you know? And Harry was fantastic. Absolutely, that was at beloved Wakefield. After Trinity had tried to rough up the tourists, and it developed into something of a bloodbath. And Harry merely asked of Bobby Fulton whether he was going to condemn or condone the behaviour of his players. What do you know about rugby league? But Harry was great, and he genuinely did care about the sport. He loved. I think he was more of a York City Knights fan than any other club. He kept his allegiances very closely. He lived in York for a lot of the time that he was doing rugby league. Could often be seen having his little run on the racecourse, waving at people, and just a genuinely nice guy. And so you need all the advocates you can get for a sport like rugby league. And within the case, space of 2 weeks, we've lost 2 of them, which is a terrible shame.
I think you summed it up there, perfectly professional, which
it's not easy to do when you've got people talking in your ear, and you got to remember what you're actually saying to the camera, and the script, and a running order, and timings. And I have to say as well that he was very good to us when we launched 4020. They had us in on Look North on the sofa, and he was genuinely interested about why would you want to start a magazine? What is it trying to be? And he, when he wished you good luck with the venture, you knew that he really meant it. And didn't know him that well, but as you say, not just someone who will be fondly remembered in a local sense, but I think he used to go and do grandstand as well, perhaps over the Christmas period. I think when they were moving their presenters around, he advocated for rugby league on a national scale. He wasn't just a great local broadcaster.
You'll hear in the interview just how professional he is, faced with some idiot from local commercial radio turning up to interview him. But that comes up after you'll hear from James Simpson and Tom Halliwell. We'll be back at some point next week. I'm not exactly sure when, talking some rugby league. And well, in the words of Harry, enjoy your rugby league. Pause. We do. I've got to come and turn it off now. Well, perfectly professional Harry Gration, and not so quite me. Thanks for watching. Tom, congratulations, Challenge Cup winner again. What was it like on the field this afternoon?
I think that's probably one of the toughest games I've ever played in my life. It was so fast. I remember looking at the clock, and I think 10 minutes have been played. I'm like, only 10 minutes? Are you kidding? That's taking a mick. But we managed to find something else, and obviously we got the job done in the end.
A great team performance. You've obviously won the Player of the Match award, but you can't win that without the players around you.
No, like I've said before, we're a very selfless team. We always fight for each other, and if someone misses a tackle, there's someone always backing up and getting that tackle behind that. And yeah, we're just a very selfless team, and we really put our hearts for each other, and we really put our bodies on the line up for each other out there.
I think it's 14 points down midway through the first half, but you didn't seem to be concerned at that point.
Well, we talked about it. We knew there would be a patch where they'd absolutely dominate us, and they're a terrific side. You can see what they're doing, they're capable of. They're an absolutely unbelievable players, an unbelievable team. But we know if we ride that storm, we'll come out at the end of it, and we did out there.
And just a word on Nathan Collins, because he appears to be a bit. I was comparing him a bit like Rob Burry, plays far above his size. Almost a Kevin Sinfield-like kicking game today as well. How many dropouts did he force? It was a superb game from him.
He's absolutely unbelievable. Like some of the stuff he does in training, I'm literally just like, how have you done that? And then the thing is, he doesn't just do it in training; he backs it up in games. And he's probably one of the best players I've ever played with, and I get a pleasure to play with him week in, week out. So it's a huge honour to be able to play with him.
Obviously, you captained England last week to beat France. You're going to play the match in this final this week against the Catalans. The World Cup coming up. How important have these two results been, these two performances been for that?
If I'm honest, they were both must-win games. Like obviously, with the tests in November last year, we lost them both, and I knew looking at this, so like we have to win against France, and we have to win against Catalan just to put us confidence up there and get us in a good stead ready for the World Cup. And I think this performance out here has really made us think and growing confidence and ready to work hard. And it shows that they are beatable, and they're not this world unbelievable team. They are beatable. They have got flaws. But that being said, it don't come easy. You have to work hard, and I think that's what we're going to be doing.
And for those who watched the game for the first time, so what do you think they'll have made of it in terms of it seems to be a different level of physicality out there this afternoon?
This is elite sport. This is what it is at the top level, and it's rugby league. It's physical. It's aggressive. It's fast. You just have to just go with it and just keep on going and keep on going. If you're stood waiting for a second, thinking what's happening here, you're going to get the points put on you easily. So you just have to get up, turn around, and just keep going.
How tired are you after that?
I'll sleep tonight. I'll tell you that. I'll sleep tonight. Full 80 minutes in the bank. Don't come much, to be fair, but nah. I just, the momentum of the final just kept me going, and the adrenaline of just playing in a final like the Challenge Cup, it's so special. The adrenaline of that just pushed me through, and I think pushed us all through, to be honest.
James, congratulations. How does it feel to win the Challenge Cup again?
It's the again bit. I think it'll take a while to sink in, but so coming into this, I'm sure whoever you've interviewed, we just thought about this. It wasn't about winning it for the third time. We've been winning it for the first time, about winning this trophy, and we've spent 4 weeks preparing for this. Every training session has been about this game. We had a few domestic games, but it was this game. Sometimes in training we were slowing it right down and moving each other around like chess pieces, mate. Do you know, like it was solely about this. And yeah, it's sunk in. We've won the Challenge Cup, but I think it'll really start sinking in when I'm driving home and my body starts aching and I'm like hurting, and then I'll be like, yeah, this feels good. This pain has come at it's done some quality, and that's obviously the trophy.
Was it a more intense game you've been used to recently coming up against the Catalans?
Probably the hardest games I've ever played in, honestly, and not from like a physical. It was physical. It was really physical. From a just quality. You know, we're toing and throwing, and it was a quality game, and it was intense, and like players were playing 80 minutes there. Do you know, playing out of the skin. There were times we were like pushing through mud, and you just kept turning into each other and being like 15 minutes. 10 minutes, let's keep going, let's keep this up, and probably best team performance I feel like we've put out for a very long time. Absolutely quality. Tom and quality, Scraps quality, Josh quality, Jody quality, Ewan quality. Do you know, honestly, I'm so proud of the team for what we did.
Yeah, Tom mentioned that it was a whole team effort. He's won the Player of the Match award, but you don't win a trophy like that without the whole team.
No, it had to be. We played Catalan Dragons, arguably coming in this one of the best teams in the world, and like one of my mates, Seb, who obviously plays, he did an interview saying that they are the Premier team in the world, and I was like, stuff like that don't get me like, well, we're going to show you. I'm just like, all right. So I do feel like a little bit we did the impossible, and people might have favoured them, but we didn't think that. We thought coming into this is our game, and we planned, we had the game plan, we stuck to it, and it worked.
No panic when you went 14 points down now, though.
No, it was 8 minutes game. We said to each other, there's going to be times in this momentum's not going to be against us, or it's going to be against us. It's how we handle that. And we said to each other, like, just grab hold of it. Just when it's against you, grab hold of it and take it for a ride. Just ride that wave, and then the momentum will come our way. We'll grab that momentum, and we'll do what we want to do. It's cup footy, mate. Sometimes you're under the cosh for a while. It's how you respond to that. Not once were we behind the try line after they scored, getting each other or saying you didn't do this, you didn't do that. You're like, just ride it, just ride this wave, get hold of it and ride it, and our time will come, and it did.
Goal line dropout after goal line dropout. It was reminiscent in a sense of when Leeds played Cass in the 2014 Challenge Cup final and Kevin Sinfield kicked them to death. Yeah. It's almost like you did that to them today.
If we can't score, we pin them in. We make them work, and that was one of the things we went to. We're like, if we can't score, we pin them in, we pin them in, we pin them in. And Nathan's kicking was exceptional. He hit the post from sometimes 30 metres out, 20 metres out a lot, and his kick was phenomenal. And that's just what you get. Big games, you get players pulling big things out like that. And every time they got a drop out, like third one in a row, I looked at some of their faces, and they were just like, and that for me, that was just like, sweet.
And he did all that with, and he shouldn't have played, Nathan Collins. He was told not to play, but obviously he's not going to listen to anyone on the back.
I didn't know if that was public knowledge, but yeah, he dislocated his fingers last week playing for England. He was advised not to play, we were told not to play, but you get a player like Nathan, he's played rugby league his whole life, he's going to play in the Challenge Cup final, and he did exactly that. And a couple of times you could see he were a bit, his hand were hurting him, ice packs were coming on, but he cracked on, mate. He's a warrior, and I think that's a good thing. Mate, the thing about our team, what makes us want to be good is for each other, and it's not for the big stuff, the fancy stuff. It's the selflessness, and we do this for each other, and the trophies will come. And that's exactly what happened today, mate. People stepped up, big games, people play big minutes, and that's exactly what happened.
Well then, Harry, how difficult is it to narrow everyone that's ever played sport from Yorkshire into 30 people?
Well, I'll tell you something, Richard, it was a real difficult selection in the end, because I've gone from 1 to 30, and I've done them in the order that I think I regard them as my true sporting heroes. So I had an initial list on the top of my head of about 100, and I've culled that to 30. And I've tried to make it a cross-section of sports, and I've also tried to have a story about each of them. That was the criteria for me, that I had some kind of connection with them, whether it was from Look North, Radio Leeds or Grandstand, and that was the basis of my selection process.
Now, were there any difficult situations where any players or sportsmen who just about crept in, or ones that you missed out with thought?
Yeah, definitely. There were a couple of difficult decisions to make, actually. My passion is cricket. I love my rugby league as well, as you probably know, and I love my football. So they were the three main sports that had to sort of take pride of place. But there are other sports I've covered as well, of course, and I've gone back to swimming and Eton Lonsborough, and also I've looked at one or two other sports as well, like Peter Elliott in athletics. In the rugby league side, there were lots of people who could have so easily got into the list, people like Alan Hardesty. But in the end, I had to be fairly ruthless, and I've gone on those that I've a story to tell about, and that's what made me look at it very, very critically in that regard.
We were sat here at Headingley overlooking the cricket ground. There's the rugby ground to the side of us. You could probably have done 30 cricketers and 30 rugby league players.
Easy. I mean, just look around you, Richard, if you get the chance today before the launch actually starts, and you'll just see this is the Legends Suite. I mean, the history that's on the photographs here is just phenomenal. You're overlooking the best test arena in the world. For me, with the new stand going up, it's a beautiful day, and it's like being in paradise. I can imagine that would be like that if I ever got up there.
It is quite awe-inspiring. Now, who were the people who first got you hooked into the world of sport?
Well, strangely, I suppose really I go back to my school. I went to school in York, and my cricket coach there was a guy called David Kirby. He sort of cemented my passion for cricket, which has always been my number one sport. But also, I suppose too, when I look at the broadcasting side of things as well, when I first started broadcasting at Radio Leeds, I had to cover rugby league, which I'd never covered before, and that became a passion as well. So all kinds of things were developed in that regard.
Did you get thrown in the deep end sometimes?
Yeah.
When I started, not too long ago now, but we had in Wakefield a rugby union club, which we don't have anymore, and my background was in rugby league, so that was quite interesting trying to commentate on rugby union without having much of an idea of what was going on, but it's a great challenge.
Well, you know what it's like, at Ridings, you're exactly the same as I was. You are, yes, you like to specialise, but the reality is you've got to cover other sports. There's a good chance at some point you'll have to do a hockey item. Wakefield's got a great hockey club there as well. So that's the way we do, and you develop, and then your interest develops as a result of it. I mean, rugby league became a real passion of mine, still is. I love the game. I still present the Super League show as well. But you're a jack of all trades, and I've covered ridiculous sports. I covered tiddlywinks once for the Oxford and Cambridge sports extravaganza for Grandstand. I did it for Grandstand. I've covered judo. I've covered wrestling. I've covered archery. I've done commentaries on these things all around the world. So, I don't proclaim to be an expert, but for a moment in time, you are.
It's the element of convincing people that you're an expert when...
Exactly. You've got to have the good patter, Richard, which I'm sure you have.
If you look, if you had to write this book again in 30 years' time, is there anyone around today who you think could get into another book?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I would now turn round to you and say that these are all heroes that have all stopped playing. That's the key to it. And some, sadly, have stopped playing, but are playing up in that great playground in the sky at the moment. So that was the criteria for this one. Yeah, I mean, I could do a modern one, and the person who I spring to mind now, I think is going to be an absolute superstar, is Jessica Ennis. I think the world heptathlete champion. She's got everything. She's a beautiful looking girl. She's got so much style and class, and she's going to be a world star. She really is. She's a fantastic person as well.
Especially being from Sheffield, and the Sports Personality of the Year has been held in Sheffield.
I mean,
so
we're voting. We're pushing like that for her to win it. I hope she does.
Yeah, I think she's one of the outstanding candidates this year.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
I think if you look at the other sports men that get put forward to sportsmen, of course, you look at the Jensen Buttons and these people, but they all have amazing technological help where it's her on her own, really.
So the physicality of it, I mean, I suppose if Andy Murray had won something, he would definitely be knocking on the door, but he's not there yet, and he's young, and he will win something. He's going to win a major at some point, so he'll be down the line a little bit. The only other contenders are usually footballers, but there's been no great footballers. So Jessica, for me, is the outstanding candidate at the moment. She's the one to beat.
If we look back then at these people, who was the main people who stick out when you've written this book?
Well, I've done it in order. I've done it from 1 to 30, and I can remember Bill Bridge of the Yorkshire Post saying to me, "I bet Boycott's number 1." Everyone knows I'm a great fan of Geoffrey. He isn't. It's John Charles, the great Leeds United player. I never saw him play in his pomp, but when you get people like Jack Charlton and Bobby Charlton saying this was the greatest player they'd ever seen, I think you've got something special there. And he was such a lovely man as well, and he ran out of money at the end, and it was a very sad way, because this guy would have been just a god in this day and age. He would have been able to play. Imagine the ball comes over, you're heading a cannonball, because that's what they were like in those days. They were just not like the soft ones now. He'd have scored 10 times the amount of goals, because it would have knocked your senses with that ball when you headed it. So he was a great one. I'm also rather surprised Boycott's number 2. I put Brian Close at number 3, because I think Brian Close has been one of the most undermentioned of cricketers of all time. He was here at Headingley, where he managed to get together the most grumpy set of Yorkshire folk and make them into an absolutely astonishing cricket team. How do you keep peace with Freddie Truman, Geoffrey Boycott, Ray Illingworth, some of those characters there? And it's great to be able to be here to reflect on Brian Close. Obviously others pop to mind. Freddie Truman, great guy as well, and he was my hero of a fast bowler, because I used to think I was a fast bowler, but he was my hero in terms of athleticism.
I guess the advantage the legends of the past have is that, unlike, say, Darren Goffel or someone today whose every moment is captured on film, these people are mostly only remembered in the memories of people who actually watch them. So over time, I know certainly to me the great Wakefield team of the 60s has been their story's been told to me time and time again, and their legend grows and grows as the years go by, which is an advantage the people of the past have over the people of today.
No doubt about that. I mean, Neil Fox is one of my heroes. He's here today. Don Fox, sadly, is no longer with us, but his family are coming here today as well. And these are people who, again, you're talking about kicking a football, kicking a rugby ball. Well, the technology now is such that those balls are easy to kick. You've still got a skill to get your goals, etc. But the ones that Neil Fox kicked were, again, like kicking a solid mound of rock when they got wet. And his skill was an astonishing one. He was a great player, was Neil Fox. He did so much for Wakefield Trinity. And I'm so chuffed that he's coming today as well.
Who were the people, or would you like to name any of the people who just missed out?
I didn't put in Seb Coe, who's obviously got a very strong Yorkshire connection, but I didn't think his connection with Sheffield was quite as significant as should have been. I mentioned to you before about Alan Hardesty, people like that. There were quite a few other great rugby league players that could so easily have got in as well. And the selection process in the end was just done on that basis. I've said to you before, it was based on my experiences. But I suppose I could have looked at a few more footballers as well. I could have looked at someone like Peter Lorimer. I've always had a high regard for. Nice chap. And I also have a real regard for Stuart McCall at Bradford City as well, because I think he distinguished himself during the Bradford City fire and has come back and is doing a great job there with Bradford City at the moment.
He's doing it the right way as well, starting down at the bottom.
Exactly. Nice guy.
If we look then at the way things are at the moment, with Yorkshire just avoided relegation, hopefully things looking good for them. They've got some good young players coming through as well.
They have fantastic players. There's a real excitement about here. Funnily enough, I don't think relegation would have been the end of the world, because the Yorkshire public would have been annoyed, but the reality is that the same people would have come to support them year after year. There's still a hard core of 2,500 who watch county championship cricket wherever Yorkshire play, and always will do. But there is a buzz about this place at the moment, and a relief that haven't gone down. But look at who they've got. They've got fast bowler, this double barrel name, what's it? Something Dolby, isn't it? Harrison Dolby, whatever. They've got Johnny Bairstow. What a player he's going to be. I mean, I eulogise about him, and Boyks told me the other day, this lad's going to play for England inside the next 2 years. I think he'll be playing for them next year. I think he's got so much talent.
It'll be a great tribute to his father as well.
Ah, great, yeah, but I think he's better than his dad, and his dad's one of my heroes. But I think Johnny's a better player. He's a better batter, certainly, much better batsman, and I'm told he's a better wicket keeper as well. And he's got such a lovely mum who supported him, and a lovely sister as well. No, they're great. He's a great lad, is Johnny, and I'm going to really push him as much as I can, Richard, I'll tell you.
Certainly we need a wicket keeper who can stay in the team. It's just something that they keep chopping and changing.
Well, they don't give him a chance at wicket keeper, and I don't know why that is. I mean, they've obviously got a couple of talented wicket keepers themselves, but there is a feeling that, I know it sounds strange, that the wicket keeping role is not that important in one sense. It used to be key, when you look at David Bairstow and you look at Jimmy Binks before him. He was one that nearly got in as well, Jimmy Binks, by the way. So you look at all these people and you think, well, yeah, they're good, and the wicket-keeping role in county championship cricket doesn't seem to be as key as it is, strangely, in one day when you've got to be really on the top of your game.
And then in Rugby League, Yorkshire dominating the Super League, which is always good to see, and Leeds going for a third successive title this week.
I can't see anybody beating Leeds. Certainly can't see St Helens doing it. I think they've got the hex on them when it comes to finals. The only way St Helens can probably rattle Leeds is, I did see a sign that I thought St Helens' defence was a lot better against Wigan than it has been in recent weeks, if they've got that part of the game together. But my theory is this: yes, Catalan bashed up Leeds a bit, but I think Wigan bashed up St Helens more, and I think Leeds will take advantage in that regard. I
think that was a great decision putting those two teams together. I don't know if that was the theory or whether they just wanted Catalans, but that was a fantastic game.
I think it was a no-brainer for me. If you've got a prospect of Saints against Wigan, which is probably the fiercest rugby league derby of all, you've got to put them together and hope that they come out walking on splints at the end of it, and that's probably what happened, really.
We've got Wakefield's Academy just winning the championship. I mean, it's good to see hopefully more youth players coming through, especially with the quota system change. Although I can't get my head around the rules necessarily, but it'd be good to see an England or Great Britain or however we play team be able to compete against the Australians time and time again, because it's something that I've never seen.
Yeah, well, it's a kind of football situation, isn't it? When you look at it. Too many Australians playing in the game over here, in my opinion. I've never gone on any other decision other than that. And the same is, there's too many international stars playing in the Premiership. Wakefield do a great job. And I have to say, if anybody has my admiration as a coach, it's John Keir. He's a great guy, is John Keir, and the club is a great club. And I'll tell you why it's a great club. It's had to cope with 2 tragedies in the last year, and it has coped with distinction, with integrity. And everybody at that rugby club deserves to be appreciated, because they do a great job with limited resources. Let's be honest, they can't compete with the big guys, but they do a good job, and they've got a top guy at the top there with John Keir.
And it's good to see, Castleford getting into the playoffs as well, and Featherstone just missing out.
And Castleford, yeah. I mean, the biggest question that they've got to, of course, decide on is both clubs, about new grounds and whatnot. I don't know how far down the road they are. There's even a suggestion, is there not, of sharing, but I'm not going to go down that because that would probably get me lynched.
It's a bit of a hot potato, that one. It certainly is. Just going back to the book again, finally. If there was one person you could watch again, or a group of people in a team, who would it be and why?
I would like to go and watch the Yorkshire cricket team in their pomp during the 60s. Really watch them play again together, and I'd like them to play that team. I'd like them to play the current county champions, and they would annihilate them. They would annihilate them.
On uncovered pictures, or the picture of
any pictures, they would annihilate them. They just look at the strength of that side from all the way down the line. What a team that was, and I just love to see it. I just love to see the rest of them grovel.
I guess when people read this book, there's going to cause some arguments.
I hope so. I hope the argument is, that's a strange choice, or that's a controversial choice, and so on and so forth. But that's what I've done it for. A bit of debates, a bit of fun as well. It also covers some of the favourite grounds that I've been to. Some of them have gone, like Bramall Lane Cricket, Park Avenue, Bradford, where I first watched my sport. and I've also covered in the book some of the sports that's still going in Yorkshire but nowhere else. So we've tried to cover quite a few things. It's been such good fun. I've really enjoyed it.
I can imagine some of the old grounds. I mean, you look at Bellevue now, and it's it's not changed much. And
no, and you know, and it needs to. It needs to in the context of. Excuse me. It needs to change in the context of Super League, because they want all the grounds to be on a similar standard. But I always think the same. When I go to Castleford, I think that's a rugby league ground for me. You know, when I go to Hull FC, KC, I love the ground, but it's a football ground, isn't it? Initially, and so that's why I'm a great believer in trying to keep the traditions strong and stick in the heartland and try and keep the grounds to reflect what the sport's all about.
Yeah, somehow building a new stadium without it being a soulless box.
Well, many of them are. You look at football grounds now. You go to Derby County, you go to Darlington, you go to Bolton. They're all the same. Yes, they're comfortable. Yes, they're good to watch, but and I'd rather have something with a bit of character, a bit of personality.
Yeah, nothing beats getting wet at Bellevue.
I'm not sure about that. I used to get absolutely soaked. I mean, when I first started my radio days, we used to have a trek around the grounds to do. I used to do on a Thursday night. I used to start off at Castleford. I used to go on to Wakefield. Then I used to go. No, so it's Castleford, Featherstone, Wakefield, and then if I'd got time, I used to head home and do Dewsbury. That was my Thursday night roundup for the Rugby League programmes over the weekend. Great fun, great time.
Better now in the summer than it will be in the winter.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure easier to cover. But of course, the other side of things now is that when I was first started in broadcasting, we used to go and meet these people. We didn't do it on telephone. Most of them do it on telephones and ISDN kits and whatnot now. We used to meet them face to face. That's where we got the stories.
That's the difference. Harry, thank you very much.
Lovely. Nice to see you.